So I'm Russell Hamley. I serve as the president of Associated Builders and Contractors, which is the leading construction trade association in the country. We support the construction industry in several ways. First of all, by education and training programs and workforce development programs, which are led by our Education Foundation, CMEF. Michael Richter is here. He's leading CMEF, and he'd be happy to answer all your questions about our programs. Also, we help the industry with political advocacy and also workforce development programs, and ABC has an exhibit booth against the west wall over there. So now I think it's very appropriate that that they have allowed me to introduce the workforce development panel, because that is our leading program right now. And so as they come on stage here, the moderator of the panel will be Jim Griffin, who's with San Jacinto College. Jim Griffin earned his BS and MS from the University of Wisconsin. He's currently the Senior Vice President of Petrochemicals, Energy and Technology at San Jac College. Jim began his career as an associate engineer with B.F. Goodrich Chemical Company. He has held positions in plant operations, corporate leadership, and R&D. Prior to joining the college, James was the VP of Manufacturing for Mitsubishi Chemical. James is a past board chair of ECMA, an alliance of 132 refineries and petrochemical plants. He is also the past board chairman of the Economic Alliance Port Region, an organization representing 12 cities, the Port of Houston, Harris County, and 250 private industry members. So ladies first here, let me introduce Kimberly Franklin with Upstream Oil and Gas. Kim is a talent acquisition leader at Occidental. In this role, Kim has oversight of all recruiting efforts, which include experienced hiring, scholarships, sponsorships, diversity outreach and planning, university relations programs, military programs, and technical college programs. You know it's a lot of work when it takes 2 breaths to get it all out. Kim has the exciting opportunity to provide strategic direction to Occidental domestically to ensure that we hire the best talent for the future workforce and the future leadership. Kim holds prior experience with various roles in HR business partner dedicated to the Permian Basin, and prior to Occidental was a recruiting manager at a boutique recruiting agency. Kim has been with Occidental for 10 years and holds a degree in English and Communications from Texas A&M University. Fun fact, Kim enjoys painting and supporting local pet rescues. Next we have Dr. Fraser Wilson, the Vice President of Shell Oil Company Foundation, Manager in Workforce and Community Strategic Initiatives for Shell Oil Company. Dr. Fraser Wilson oversees Shell's corporate and foundation contributions, workforce, community, employee giving, and education outreach programs. Wilson has worked at Shell for over 20 years in accounting and community relations roles. Prior to joining Shell, he worked in education as a teacher, volunteer, and mentor. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Jackson State University and an MBA and Doctorate in Education Leadership from TSU. Active in the community, Wilson is a graduate of Leadership Houston, American Leadership Forum, the United Way's Project Blueprint, and a mentor with Big Brothers and Big Sisters. He currently serves on the boards for the Fort Bend Education Foundation, Smithsonian Science Education Center, Neighborhood Centers, and the Museum of Fine Arts. And he also serves on the Advisory Council for Jackson State College of Business, KIPP Academy in Houston, Texas Southern University, Science and Technology, and he's the chairman emeritus of 100 Black Men of Metropolitan Houston, a national mentoring organization. Last but not least, because he's my boss here, Brandon Malbayo, Performance Contractors. He's the chairman of ABC and CMEF this year. Brandon is the Texas Region Business Development Manager for Performance Contractors. Performance is a heavy industrial general contractor specializing in capital projects, turnarounds, and maintenance. Brandon currently serves as the chairman of the board of Associated Builders and Contractors and the chairman of the Construction and Maintenance Education Foundation, CMEF. And he's the chairman of the National ABC Free Enterprise Alliance, which involves political advocacy. Brandon has participated on or led workforce development committees, panels, and task forces for the following groups: Petrochem Works, the NCCER, Houston Business Roundtable, the Greater Houston Partnership, East Harris County Manufacturing Association, ECC, and other associations. Brandon joined Performance Contractors in 2006 after studying communications and political science at LSU. Brandon lives in Sugar Land with his wife Lydia and has 3 daughters, ages almost 3 through 9. So Jim, take it away with the panel.
Well, thank you, Russell. And as you can see, we have a very talented panel today. We're going to start with Kim.
Right.
So a week ago, so Thursday of last week, 2 of the largest complexes in Saudi went down. A decade ago, that would have caused our gas prices to go up $1. That didn't happen. God bless the Permian. We know that you are very involved in the Delaware Basin. Tell us about the upstream successes and the opportunities.
Absolutely. As it relates to workforce challenges, I would say the remote areas that we operate in the industry, the oil and gas industry. So Oxy is multifaceted. We've got a chemicals division, midstream, and oil and gas. And so for oil and gas, specifically, the remote locations that we operate in, there's just not infrastructure. So we have challenges from a workforce standpoint trying to have the people there to run those operations. And as our operations continue to advance from a technical standpoint, the needs and skills of those individuals are advancing as well. And so there's a lot of investment that's happening right now between the oil and gas companies coming together. Some of you may have heard of the Permian Strategic Partnership, where it's an alliance that's been created to help build that infrastructure from education to medical to roads to housing. And so these remote areas that we operate in, without having the proper infrastructure, it's really hard to get the talent that we need to work in these remote locations. And so, partnering with schools in Permian is definitely trying to develop those partnerships and grow those efforts. But there's a lot of challenges there. I could spend probably all afternoon talking about it. But that's why some of the strategy that we've used is to come back here locally, where we've had significant success with our chemicals division, with San Jack and HCC and Lone Star and some of the Lee College and some of the other areas. And we've created rotational assignments. So we've got people here locally that are actually going out to our Permian Basin operations that have the education, that have the skill sets that we need because of the lack of that out there. So it's interesting times.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. As you look at your table material, you'll see that Fraser's name is not there. Actually, Mike was flying in from PA and couldn't get in. But like all of our chemical companies, Shell has a backup and has a backup to a backup. So Fraser, we really appreciate that. So we're going to jump geography. Tell us about Western PA and this world-scale cracker that you're building.
So thanks, Jim. The Pennsylvania project is one of the projects we are most proud of, and the efforts of working with the community as well as leveraging the know-how that was just shared in this Houston market has been instrumental in our success for that project. This project, we initially started looking at the area in 2012, looking for an opportunity where there was an area that had an industrial history as well as a workforce to support those efforts. So as we started expanding and looking into could we be successful in this space, developing the workforce and developing those relationships with partners, be it community colleges and others in that industry was key as we started moving forward with the project. As we look at the project now, we're starting to, we've been erecting the structures. We're in a good space. Now we're at the point where we want to link those things together through our pipelines and some of the things that we're doing in that area. So this is one of the things we're most proud of how this project has progressed along the way and the relationships that have been able to be developed through those efforts, and also leveraging what's happening here locally. I mean, we ought to be proud of the things that we've been able to do in this region to really develop workforce and become a model for the rest of the country on how you do it successfully. and our willingness to share our best practices and bring those individuals in. 2 years ago, as the project was progressing, we were able to bring in one of our community college partners, the Beaver County Community College. They came in, we took them on a tour to see what was happening at San Jack, Lone Star, Brazosport, and some of our other partners. And the willingness to share best practices and learning and how to do it has been so valuable in our success with the project. It definitely has been highlighted as one of the models and new developments in how you move forward.
And how many new jobs in Beaver County, PA?
Well, looking at the current project, there are over 6,000 contractors on site helping to develop this effort. So again, important collaboration and partnership.
That's impressive. Okay, Brandon, so talk to us about construction in the Houston area, the challenges and the opportunities.
So the Houston area continues to be strong, and I agree with Bob Bradshaw. I think the peak is probably 2024 time period. The issue we're having, and the previous panel said it well, as competitive as we are in feedstock costs, we're beginning to become uncompetitive through productivity and through workers' wages. And so if we are not developing our workforce, taking barriers out of their way, because I would argue that the individual worker is more productive than he's ever been, but we've put so many barriers to keep the tools out of his hands at any given moment that the productivity has fallen since 1973 gradually. So if we as an industry don't develop that worker, don't develop more workers to keep the wages from going out of control, we're going to start to lose more and more projects to Asia, to the Mideast, or we're going to start to see more and more of these projects so heavily modularized that the construction companies in the region become installers, and our workforces shrink dramatically, and the impact we have on the local economy shrinks dramatically. And so that's why it's so important that we continue as a community to develop this workforce so that we can retain the competitive advantage that Houston has thanks to the feedstock that we get from the Permian and the Delaware and throughout the country, and that we don't lose that competitive edge to other global markets.
Do you still use a measure time on tools? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we still do measure time on tools. Right now, from recent surveys I've heard from my company, from other contractors, is that somewhere in the 58% time on tools is world class, which is incredibly shocking and very scary. On major mega-sized projects, you're lucky to reach 52, 54% of the day on time on tools.
So I was thinking about Fraser's number of 6,000, and you can imagine what a 5% increase in that efficiency would do to a project of that size. Okay. Well, I'm going to come back to Fraser. We're going to talk a little bit about, let's do some history. So tell us a little bit about kind of where we came from and historically what the workforce looked like and our hiring methods.
So my role was created some 15 years ago to look at our effort around how do we develop and attract our workforce. As we look at some of the things that we've done in the past, a lot of it we did the on-the-job training, proctor assessments, referrals through current employees on how we attract individuals to our workforce. But as our needs and demands continue to grow, we adjusted our model to bring in better practices and leverage some of the talent and some of the efforts and training providers that were provided by the community college, as well as some of the online tools to help with the training, with an increased emphasis on safety. Safety was one of the key things that we looked for in our partners, and looking for a consistent curriculum that we could utilize across the system that all partners could participate in. Because as we looked at opportunities to build and develop moving forward, we realized we needed to build a model that not only Shell could benefit, but the region and industry could benefit in this effort. So coming together with some of our peers and our partners, looking at what is the common thread that helps pull us all together, that we can go out into the marketplace with our community college partners, trade associations, and create some consistency in our approach. Because as we saw the entry-level individuals coming in, one of the things we all observe is some of the areas around soft skills, continue with safety and looking for consistency. So as I look at what has happened over the years, what I see is better collaboration and alliances and partnering with community colleges, definitely a better use of technology to help with the training, and also how we share and bring in employees into the workforce. Definitely a lot of emphasis on local content, being able to hire along our fence line, involving the community, make them be more aware of the opportunities and see us as a valued partner and contribute to economic development. Because as we realize, our efforts extend beyond just the plant. We influence what's happening in K to 12 and how we can encourage others and raise awareness in the space, and how that helps build stronger communities and partnerships in our efforts.
I'd add to that. I think that I echo everything that you just said. I would say, even over the last 10 years, what I've observed is, specifically in the oil and gas industry, you had to have experience. You had to have a certain degree. And if you didn't have that, then we moved on to the next person that did. And with that, we have a shortage of people with these critical skills that we need. So we've had to evolve. We've had to be more creative. We've created non-traditional programs where we're hiring military, we're hiring people from, NASA with degrees that we wouldn't typically go after for this industry, and we're training them in-house. They've got that base foundation and the critical thinking skills that we need. Now they just need to learn to apply it to this industry. So I think we've switched gears from that standpoint over the last 10 years. In addition to that, I think more of our field operational type critical skill sets, people that actually touch the wellhead. For so long, we could have individuals with a high school degree. Well, that is becoming the past. With the skills and the advancing technologies that we have in our operations, we are looking for those community colleges that we're partnering with for those applied science degrees in process technology, petroleum technology, anything that has any inkling of automation, because that's our future. So that's just my observation over the last 10 years.
On the construction side, I would say even as recently as 20 years ago, your dad or your uncle or your cousin brought you to the gate, you met a superintendent, and you filled out a couple paperwork. You maybe went down the street and peed in a cup, and then you came back and you went to work. That was my first job as a welder's helper back in the year 2000. And I'm not even sure if I took a drug test. I don't remember now. But now that has changed rapidly, and I think one of the major steps to that is that Hurricane Katrina happened, and a lot of our workforce dispersed. And I think they brought some new people back into the workforce that were kind of claiming they had skills that they didn't. And all of a sudden, assessment became important and verification became important. Background screens have become very important to our owners in a post 9/11 world. And so the process has gone from, in 20 years, walk up to the gate, fill out some paperwork, go to work that morning, to go to an HR office, take a competency test, take a hands-on test, get a background check, get a drug screen, and if you're lucky, 6 days later, you're in the facility. And so there's good and bad to that. That 6 days can be a killer for people who live on a paycheck to paycheck and people that we need to protect as an industry. But there's a lot of good to it in that we are now at a point where we can see competencies before they get on site, and so that can help to drive the safety message down.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and the perception of the industry definitely has changed when you look at the workers. So before, that perception was you didn't have to be highly skilled, but now the expectation, you have to be highly skilled, problem solvers, team players, and how parents and educators view our industry has changed for the better. So now we're welcomed into the classroom, into the parent meetings, and to share about the opportunities and careers. Now there's more of a desire and interest to pursue occupations in our space.
So Kim, maybe we'll ask you to start this one up. How about today's workforce? What are the strengths that you see in our current workforce?
So, There's a lot of strengths. I think there's so many strengths that it's so competitive. So it depends on what demographic you're talking about. If you're talking about those coming out of a 4-year degree off university, I mean, it is highly competitive because they've, been trained to not only be, have a technical degree, get a 4.0 GPA, but they're the student chapter leader. They do all this extracurricular activity. They're so well-rounded at this point, where we weren't that way maybe even 10, 15 years ago. We've trained our early career workforce to be so well-rounded that it's a huge competitive market that they're going into. And there's so few engineers coming out of university that don't have a job. Internships are so competitive, as I'm sure everyone here in the room knows. So from that demographic standpoint, I would say the advantage is that we've got more people coming out of university with 4-year degrees that are well-rounded, but the opportunities that are there, the supply and demand, cyclically are not aligned, at least within our industry.
Excellent. Well, we have a lot of questions coming in, so we appreciate that. Brandon, I'm going to take this one over to you. What crafts are in high demand, and how are they getting trained?
So wood crafts are in high demand. Welders are always in high demand. Crane operators, the demand is getting higher. And I'm looking around, most of you here have been in this industry longer than I have, and you probably remember a time when there was something called an oiler. We have not been able to hire an oiler in about 15 years, but oilers were the path to becoming crane operators. Crane operators are old. Find any crane in Houston, and the driver is probably 55 or older, and so crane operators will rapidly become a problem as they begin to retire out. How are they getting trained? And there's another question right below I think goes well, is who is going to train the high volume of skilled craft workers? You are. The people in this room are. The company owners, the owners of the facilities. It's our job to do it. And we need to do it together so that we're not training. And I see a young man right here. You're a student, right, sir? Okay, so I see a student right here. What's your name, sir? Andrew? Okay, so it does Andrew no good if he comes to me and I train him to do a job, and 6 months later he goes down the street to another contractor and they train him to do the same job, and 2 years later he goes down the street to another contractor and they train him to do the same job. We're just wasting Andrew's time, we're wasting our money, we're not getting anything accomplished. Now imagine if all of us contractors had come together in a community, and then Andrew's training with me got expounded upon at the next contractor and got expounded upon at the next contractor. And all of a sudden, instead of having the same training 3 times, Andrew has 3 years of training on the same curriculum. And so that is what CMEF does with our partners at the community colleges like San Jac and Lee. We come together, we have an agreed upon curriculum, and that certification, that training continues on. And so I would tell you, if you're in this room and you're an owner and you're not actively involved with East Harris County Manufacturers Association, you need to go find Craig Beskett and figure out how to get involved. If you're a contractor and you're not actively involved in the Construction Maintenance and Education Foundation, you need to go find Michael Richter and ask him how to get involved, because when I see a question that says, who is going to train, you are. And if you're not, you're failing, and you're going to fail at it. And so we need to do this together, because if we don't do it, it's not getting done.
Well, again, we're getting many good questions. Let me go to another one off the screen here. Talk a little bit about leadership. What are you looking for? What type of leadership skills with your new hires, and maybe even upskilling your current hires?
Who wants to take that one?
I can say on the field side, when we talk about soft skills and how important soft skills are, I think the number one skill outside of craft skills is the ability to effectively communicate, to be able to get your point across. I can't tell you how many people in leadership positions have trouble writing a coherent email from the field level. And so that is a major one, is just to be able to communicate, because it's going to stop arguments from happening, it's going to stop misunderstandings from happening. And you need to be clear and concise with safety regulations and safety rules and expectations. And so I would say from a leadership perspective, effective communication is unbeatable.
How about the workforce of the future? What's it going to look like? Give us your vision out 10 years. We hear a lot about digital transformation and virtual reality and augmented reality and all those new tools that we're bringing online. Tell us about, what do you see workforce of the future?
I think we're going to definitely continue to have a need for skilled laborers with degrees that are more inclined from an automation standpoint, that could go out and work in our field operations or come into our office and work that way. I think we're going to have a more versatile workforce to help support this technology.
Definitely more technical and skilled, and the ability to collaborate and work across time zones to problem solve, look for solutions. So again, you're looking for innovation. That's going to continue to evolve, but the expectation that you stand out as a leader and you're able to share and bring others on and really provide that training and skilling that's necessary in the workplace.
I think augmented reality is going to become very important, virtual reality. I can tell you Performance just invested a significant amount of money into virtual reality crane simulators because we found that our students at crane school are not getting the seat time that they need. And so by giving them, much like an airplane simulator, and this thing's, it's amazing, man. You put the thing on, the seat rumbles, it's got the controls, it's really awesome. But I think that augmented reality and virtual reality will allow us to train and upskill more people at a time. In a time when more and more of our instructors are also aging out and retiring out, we need to have the individual instructors be able to put their hands on more students at a time. So I think augmented and virtual reality are definitely a wave that's going to hit big in the next 10 years.
Great.
Yeah, we have a task force group at the college working on that. As you know, we're installing 35 custom laboratories, and they're designed to run with a professor or instructor. But how much of that could we do 24/7 with other tools like augmented reality? All right, so we're on innovation. So tell us about innovation at your facilities and your new hires. We'll start with Kim. I know what you're doing upstream is a lot different than it was just a decade ago. Tell us about your innovative practices.
Well, innovation is a core value at Oxy, and so regardless of our oil and gas division or our chemicals division, it's a core value that we embrace. We've got strategic teams dedicated to things like augmented reality, like we just discussed, but that is their job. They're on an innovation team that is specifically dedicated to furthering and advancing the company. Oxy's different. We don't have a research division, so this is something, I guess, like that, but as it's related to innovation and how we're going to continue to innovate and advance and be competitive within our industries that we operate.
Continue to look at how we digitalize our activities as we move forward, and also looking at the changing workforce. Mm-hmm. We'll see more women in the workforce in these occupations. So what are we doing to embrace and adjust and help encourage a culture of inclusiveness and prepare our workforce to move forward in this space as we look for to fill the growing needs and demands for our industry? How do we attract and make it more attractive to those individuals who have not traditionally been in this space? So again, that's one of the things that I continue to see the industry evolve, and we're getting more creative in how we do our outreach to encourage others to move into this space, and looking forward to seeing what the next 15 to 30 years look like in this activity.
And on a non-technological innovation side, one of the things that Performance has done in the past 3 years is we've opened regional assessment centers, and so now every employee is getting a hands-on assessment in a safe lab environment. And actually, we're using modules that were developed by CMEF, and so we're putting hands-on assessments on employees, and then we're properly classifying them at the HR office instead of in the field. And so we can get a look at the employee and say, hey, you know what, you're not a journeyman, you're a B class, you're a C class. And because of our partnership with CMEF, with Sanjac, we can say, and this is the class you need to take to get there. And it's a lot easier to tell someone you're cutting their pay $2 an hour when then the next thing you tell them is, I'm going to pay for you to go to school, and in 6 months you're going to be there. And with that proper classification, we're not getting the complaints, the hamburger flippers complaints anymore. anymore. And so I'm proud to say Performance no longer employs hamburger flippers. And so that proper classification, I think, is an innovation that should spread throughout the industry and is catching on, I think, with a lot of other contractors.
Okay, we're going to have Kim start off with this next question, and it's around safety in the workforce. So at San Jacinto College, 2 of our adjunct professors in safety work currently with the Oxy organization, so thank you. They're awesome professors. So tell us about workforce and safety culture, kind of how important that is and how you prepare your workforce.
Absolutely. It is the utmost importance at Oxy. I mean, it is one of our core values. We have a program that's called Stop Work Authority. If you see something happening that's unsafe, whether you're in operations or not, you have the right to stop and make sure that that everyone understands that you're coming from a place of you're looking out for that individual. And so it's a huge safety culture at Oxy. It's something that at the plant level, at the field level, even at our office level, that we take very seriously and is involved in our day one orientation, and it goes throughout, when somebody's onboarding, it continues, and then throughout the year, we continuously have safety education. It is the utmost importance at Oxy.
I would echo, we do a lot of the same things, and I've always heard in golf, the hardest distance in golf is that last 8 inches, right there. And I think that 8 inches is the last gap to cross in safety. I think we're at a point for most of us as contractors, as owners, where our policies and procedures have gotten to a point that if they are followed, you can't get hurt. It's become impossible to get hurt, and yet people are still getting hurt every day. In the construction industry, 3 people die every day. And I'll be honest with you, it's not so much here in Houston and the people in this room, but it's still going on. And so we have to get our employees to buy in. Things like having employee advocates that visit the site, that get a pulse of the morale on site, the feeling on site, I think is the next great leap in safety, because at this point, incremental policy and procedure upgrades are not going to get us to zero. They're going to get us very close, but they're never going to close that last 8-inch gap, which is the employee buy-in. And once we get that complete buy-in, goal zero will absolutely be achieved on a wide scale when that happens.
And goal zero in safety has to be embedded in who you are as a person. So the expectation at Shell, not only is it around safety in the workplace, but it needs to be safety at home. What are you doing to educate your family, your kids, and your community about the safety culture? As we engage with partners in this space, we ensure that our partners understand the importance of safety and that they have safe practices. When our employees enter a facility, first thing they need to find out what the exits are. When we host meetings, we start our meetings with a safety message. So it's embedded, it's reinforced, but the expectations, again, is that you're doing this at home with your families as well.
Well, hats off to the construction industry, because I know how focused you've been on that, and now we see the construction industry with safety statistics very similar to the owners. And of course, at many of our plants, we have as many contractors in our facilities as we have owner people. So congratulations. You've come a long way. I know your goal is zero, so it's one that just never ends. Let's talk a little bit. I don't know if the term soft skills is right, or it's maybe more essential skills. But tell us about not just your new hires, but how you're developing incumbent workers around soft skills, things like teamwork and reliability and critical thinking. I know, especially in your companies, you're so technology driven, and so tell us a little bit about how you handle that. Maybe Kim, could you start that one off?
Sure. So at Oxy, we've got an employee development and organizational group that supports all of our business segments, and there's a variety of soft skill courses all the way down to foundations of management for new leaders and what that looks like and how to get you acclimated to where you feel supported and equipped to take on a leadership role like that. At the plant and field level, we've got trainings that happen quite regularly. We've got, teamwork type of training and sessions, and So it's embedded in our culture. It's something that, to me, I don't think about this as something that we do differently. It's just something that we do ongoing, and we try and embrace and help and make sure that everyone feels like they're equipped, because soft skills are so important. You could be the most technical, brightest person in the room, but if you can't communicate and you can't effectively communicate, then we as a team are not going to win. And at Oxy, we are one team. And so if we've got someone lacking in one area, then we're going to have the skills and the resources to be able to get them up to speed with whatever they need, whether it be a soft skill or some other type of course or training.
And understanding the shared value and success model in that as you are working with the team, as you continue to gain experience and progress, there are certain expectations and competencies that you should continue to develop as you move forward. So through your efforts with your team, leading meetings, leading projects, communicating, giving presentations, and engaging in that space, these activities are to help you develop these soft skills that are critical to help you move forward in a company, as well as to help us understand and be on the same page with one common goal at the end of the day.
Well, excellent. So we've got just a couple minutes left. So I'm just going to open it up to, do you have any wrap-up comments, words of wisdom that you would like to share with this group today?
I think the future is really exciting. I think all the innovation and technology that we have at our fingertips now is just going to continue to accelerate. And so the purpose of this conference alone just shows the amount of support in this room, and that just magnifies the support that we'll need to continue with the challenges that are going to arise with these new workforce needs. So I applaud all of you for being here, and thank you so much for your support.
And continue to share all the great things that you're doing. There's still, even though in this region there's more awareness about what we do, but there's still a lot of unknown and untapped populations where there's an opportunity for us to continue to raise the awareness and the great things that we're doing. There are a lot of individuals who could benefit and help our industry if they had more connection to what we're doing. They all won't become employees, but become advocates for the work that we're doing and how we help make a stronger region in this space.
Yeah, and we're so fortunate to work in an industry where we built something, right? And our industry, I feel like of all the industries out there, especially on the construction side, is one of the more automation proof, and so it's going to be. A lot of industries are talking about how many years until we fully automate, whether it's truck driving or factory or manufacturing, whereas in the construction industry, it's how many decades, or is it a century before we automate just because of the complexity of the job. And so it's so urgent that we continue to develop our workforce. And we need, as an industry, to do what was done in this industry when I was a little boy in safety, where we all came together and said it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to have TRIRs in the 8, 9, 10 range. It's unacceptable to have them in the 0.9 range now, right? And so we as a group need to come together. We need to have that watershed moment where we are going to do this for our future workforce, for our current workforce, that we are going to give them the skills and the training that they need to go out and continue to be the best workforce in the world so that we continue to win projects and we can continue to develop people and continue to drive this economy, which is the engine of this country.
Excellent. So students, again, could you raise your hands? All right. So I'm going to make two comments here. One is, you read their bios, you heard about their bios. They were where you are not so long ago. So they've walked in your same shoes. Take the opportunity today to meet up with these three people, very accomplished. They're going to give you some good coaching, and they represent some awesome companies. Thank you so much for being here today, and a big round of applause, please.